2 additional aircraft. That's the line buried near the bottom of a French government announcement on June 4th that almost nobody on this side of the Atlantic stopped to read. 2 firefighting planes built in Calgary sold to Paris. Sounds like a footnote. It isn't, because 8 days later, on June 12th, Mark Carney walked into the Élysée Palace and turned that footnote into something much bigger. A signal about where Canada is choosing to point its economy, while Washington keeps changing the rules on us. And if you've been watching your grocery bill, your job security, or the value of the dollar in your pocket over the last 18 months, this connects to all of it. Stay with me, because by the end of this, I think you'll see the Paris trip the way I started seeing it once I stopped reading the headlines and started reading the actual documents. Here's the figure that frames everything. In 2025, merchandise trade between Canada and France hit $15.2 billion. Our exports to France, roughly $5 billion. Imports about $10.2 billion. That trade has grown by nearly 2/3 over the past decade. And France is now our 3rd largest export market inside the entire European Union. Those aren't forecasts or wishful projections. That's the relationship as it already stands. Now, this is the part that caught me off guard. The biggest announcement out of Paris wasn't the one getting the most attention. Let me walk you through what actually came out of that room, because there are 3 separate layers here, and each one matters in a different way. First, Carney and Macron signed a new General Security of Information Agreement, a GSIA. These agreements are the legal plumbing of defense cooperation. It lets Canada and France share classified information across defense, space, AI, and aerospace, which means companies in both countries can actually bid on each other's contracts and build supply chains together. And this isn't a one-off. It's the 6th such agreement Canada has signed since December 2024. Read that again. 6. That's not a country improvising. That's a country building a pattern. Second, Carney highlighted Canada's role in setting up the Defense Security and Resilience Bank. The DSRB is going to be headquartered right here on Canadian soil. Think of it like a world bank built specifically for defense and security. Its job is to provide long-term, low-cost financing for defense projects across allied supply chains, including for the small and mid-sized companies that normally can't get near that kind of capital. The charter negotiations wrapped up in Montreal back on April 29th. Third, and honestly, this is the piece I think deserves far more airtime than it's getting. The 2 leaders pointed to a joint quantum science and technology framework they'd signed back in May. Quantum computing, quantum communication, quantum sensing. These are exactly the fields where Canada already has genuine world-class strengths and where France has been pouring in investment. It's about who owns the next decade of technology. So let me step back and tell you why I think this is structurally bigger than any single signature. For most of modern history, our trade has flowed south to the American market. But the moment that partner becomes unpredictable, the moment tariffs show up overnight, dependence stops being a source of stability and quietly becomes your single biggest vulnerability. That's the real backdrop to Paris. What Carney is doing isn't a reaction to a bad week in Washington. It's a deliberate effort to build alternative architecture, to lower the degree to which every economic decision we make has to be run through Washington first. And even in these early stages, that shift changes the entire negotiating environment. Now, the timing of this trip is not an accident. You need to understand one thing about who Mark Carney was long before he ever became Prime Minister. Mark Carney's first official trip abroad back in March 2025 wasn't to Washington, it was to Paris. And the relationship between these 2 men runs deeper than diplomacy. It goes back to Carney's years running the Bank of England from 2013 to 2020, while Macron was climbing through French politics. These 2 understand each other's economic frameworks at a level most leaders never reach. Now, I want to be fair here. Macron is not negotiating from a position of overwhelming strength. But here's where Carney's background starts to show. A central banker doesn't think in election cycles. They think in transmission mechanisms. They ask one question. If I do this today, what does the entire system look like in 24 months? Look at the DSRB through that lens and it clicks. It becomes permanent infrastructure that lets allied countries fund defense without routing everything through Washington. Carney isn't just making an announcement, he's laying pipe quietly. Trump's tariff pressure on Canada, which started aggressively in early 2025, created what economists call a forcing function. It didn't invent Canada's diversification strategy, but it handed that strategy urgency and political cover. Now, when Carney signs a defense agreement with France, he frames it accurately as Canada taking its own security seriously. It isn't retreat, it's parallel options. That's paychecks in Calgary tied directly to the Canada-France relationship. The Paris visit was a dress rehearsal for the G7. Right now, in Evian-les-Bains, Carney is sitting down with the other major economic powers, Trump included, for their first gathering since the U.S.-Israeli offensive in Iran reshaped the geopolitical picture. The leaders who walk into a summit like that with frameworks already signed hold a fundamentally different kind of leverage. What you're looking at isn't reactive, scrambling foreign policy, it's sequenced. The cleanest parallel is Australia with China between 2019 and 2023. When that relationship soured, the retaliation was fast and brutal. What pulled Australia through was the speed with which it diversified. The lesson for Canada is that you build parallel infrastructure fast enough that no single partner gets veto power over your economy. The GSOIA, the DSRB, the quantum framework. That's the parallel infrastructure. The question is whether Canada is building it fast enough. There's a real argument that Trump's pressure has produced some outcomes that are defensible from a Western alliance standpoint. Canada is now meeting NATO's 2% of GDP defense spending target. The DSRB that Canada is hosting exists partly because Trump's hard-nosed approach forced allies to think about independent funding. But the pressure was never a precision instrument. It was blunt economic force. That's not a diplomatic resume. That's a negotiating posture. There's one more wrinkle. Trump arrives having announced a memorandum to wind down the war with Iran. A big part of the agenda is a European-led plan to clear mines from the Strait of Hormuz, something Canada signaled it could support. Any honest read has to hold both things at once, real friction on trade and real shared interests on security. This is where it all finally comes together. So, let me bring it home. Individually, none of these change your life this week. Why should it matter to you? Here's the practical mechanism. The DSRB is designed to provide financing for the small and mid-sized Canadian companies that can't currently access the capital to compete for NATO contracts. Picture a Canadian firm in aerospace or cybersecurity. This institution serves them, meaning jobs at headquarters and export contracts that don't route through Washington. That's industrial strategy that changes a city's trajectory. That's not weakness, that's leverage. The next 6 to 12 months are the real test of whether all this leverage is genuine. If the DSRB moves from charter to reality, June 12th in Paris will look foundational. If a reset in Canada-US trade happens, we negotiate from genuine optionality, not from desperation. The real story was always about building the institutional muscle to be a sovereign actor in a world of great power competition. Paris was one data point. This summit is the next. We are building the foundation to stand on our own. Thanks for watching.